So one of my favorite stories I like to tell out there in the world, dinner parties, events, gatherings, when I have a bunch of interested people I am speaking to about some of the more interesting things that have happened during my run as editor-in-chief of High Canada magazine. There's one story I like to tell, and I'm going to tell it now. So, Grow Up Conference in Victoria. We were so excited to bring it out to Victoria. Uh, Gone down to Victoria a bunch of times, given out a lot of free tickets, and really putting some legwork in. I was part of the advisory board for the Grow Up Conference at that point and closest to Victoria. And just an amazing event. The turnout was amazing. So many great quality people. The location, superb. The smoking area, phenomenal. And that was the year we had Jim Belushi join us at Grow Up in Victoria. And of course, you know Belushi Farms. Jim's an amazing grower, public figure. He's funny as hell, and he advocates hard in his role as a cannabis businessman within the cannabis space, and just a hell of a guy. Um, and I got the opportunity to interview him at the Victoria Grow Up, and I was thrilled. You know, Jim Belushi, very cool. I think this is awesome. Met so many interesting people doing what I do. But that was the same event that I was trying on an overzealous teammate. And my teammate, he was from the Ukraine, and he had a very thick Ukrainian accent. And he was a bigger guy and very passionate about medical cannabis, and especially the possibility of cannabis going like legalizing in the Ukraine. And so this particular new staff was chasing me around because I'm notoriously hard to find at these events, and he was looking for me for the bulk of the event. Um, and Had a few people come up to me during the event. And they was like, "Hey, listen, there's this like very intense Russian or Ukrainian guy who's looking for you. Like, are you okay?" And I laughed. I'm like, "Yeah, everything's fine." And then a cannabis lawyer I knew walked by me as well and did the "Hey, listen, there's this mobster looking for you," and it's like you should be aware. Like I explained, he's not really a mobster. He's one of my new people I'm trying to mobs. We're trying to mob. He's supposed to be covering the show. Um, and so about 15 minutes before the Jim Belushi interview, which was going to happen in our booth zone because we were set up at the mouth at the beginning of the conference, and I was telling the new staff, kind of bringing them up to speed on the day and getting their input from the day. And my new staff was super excited and super hyper and also super high. And he was coming across very, very intense. And I understand there's a lot going on. And it can be a little mind blowing for somebody who's never really done a conference like that, especially from a media perspective, because it's different when you're media as well, than different than if you're a vendor or you're a sponsor or you're attendee or an organizer. Media has a very unique perspective on this. And so I explained that I had an interview coming up, and we'd do a sit down, walk around together when I was done the interview. And I stepped away to prep for the interview. And our staff found out that it was Jim Belushi. And he quickly pulled out a Support Ukraine bracelet. And as I was putting my miking up and Jim was arriving, Jim was about to arrive, he was getting a little rangy. I thought, excited. He's excited. He's excited. Um, so I went out. I went and met Randy, and we walked Jim over to my booth, and we got to know, the preliminary hellos and how you doing. And we got into interview positions. We got all mic'd up, and we're getting into interview positions, and I really like this about Jim actually because my knees weren't in the right space spot, and our body language was different. Wasn't like it wasn't resonating. So he showed me a better way to interview with body language and positioning of the knees that look great on camera. And I really appreciated that. So we're getting rolling, and we're a grassroots organization. We're not like NBC, and he was gentle with us. We are, like I said, we're creatives, and we were trying to make sure everything was cool. And a bunch of people kind of formed to kind of watch the interview going on because, of course, it's Jim Belushi. And the interview's going well, first couple minutes. But I scan into the group of people, the audience, I guess, that is formed at this point, and I see my my new overzealous, um, heavily accented new staffer just vibrating with intensity. And what I didn't know is he had already approached Jim a few times, with that same kind of energy. And when you're a public figure and people come at you with that kind of energy, it's very disconcerting. Yeah, and I didn't realize Jim had already had to deal with it. So we're doing the interview, and I guess something that person did caught Jim's eye. We're in mid-sentence, and Jim stops the interview. He looks out at the audience, points his finger at the guy, the staffer, who literally it was his first show, and he was excited, but he was like coming across so intense. He told the guy he had to stop it, and that he had to stop it, and that he had to go now. And then security came and they escorted him away because he was escalating. I don't know what it was, but it made Jim uncomfortable enough to stop the interview. And then it took a moment, and Jim turned back to me and he smiled, and we carried on our interview. And it was a great interview. He made me laugh. I think I made him chuckle a bit too. I know he really enjoyed coming to the Grow Up conference, and it was really cool to do some content with him as well. So I learned some stuff. I hope it was a memorable interview for him. I think from Jim's perspective that it was a crazy stalker, and like I'm sure he has to deal with them, or some sort of person who was like totally out of control, and it frickin' happens out there. Which is a reminder: don't like swarm your favorite cannabis celebrity or any celebrity. They don't take that kind of stuff. And definitely curb your enthusiasm tiny bit. Anyway, I'm sure Jim remembers it as the time the crazy he might remember Russian, but he probably remembers Ukraine. The crazy Ukrainian came after him in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. So that's my story. Jim is definitely one of our cannabis heroes. He's out there slugging, he's out there fighting, he's out there growing, he's out there doing the work. And much mad love, much respect for everything that he brings to the table in the US, and what he brought to the table here in Canada. Trade wars aside, we have a lot of unity between the US cannabis space and the Canadian cannabis space, and the Mexican cannabis space, and the European cannabis space, and the African cannabis space, and India's cannabis space. And you may not see it if you're not in the space, but yeah, much love to Jim Belushi, definitely one of High Canada Magazine's heroes. Thank you for teaching us a couple things.